watching.
So I'm going to introduce the synth here. Hey, this is ConductorElectronic.com. I've been talking a lot lately about my rig rundown in my posts. You can check them out there on my site. And so I wanted to do a video and show you each of these machines and how I'm using them, how they're set up to play together. And this is my current live setup. So here we go. This is the TR8. It's a newer drum machine. It's a reissue from Roland of the TR808 and the TR909, both released in the early 80s, and this machine was released in 2014 to incorporate sounds from the two original machines, plus new sounds that are unique to this one. I'm running it as my MIDI master, so I've got a MIDI output here going over to the S1 synth, which is also part of the IRA series. This was released along with the TR8, but it's the synth. I'm running the MIDI in to here. I'm also running the outputs, rather than into my mixing board, I'm running them into an external input on the TR8. So these machines are not only connected by MIDI, which I'm using for tempo and for start-stops, but actually the drum machine does relate to the synth in the sense that the external inputs are coming from the synth into the drum machine, and I can do things like affect the sidechain, something that I'll probably talk about in a different video. But from the S1 synth, there is the MIDI going out from here. So now this is being controlled by the master, which is the TR8, but it is controlling the next instrument in the MIDI chain, which is my TB3, also from the IRA series, and it's a step sequencer. It says touch bassline. You can create all sorts of different sounds. So it basically just runs through the steps, the 16th notes. You can write your own patterns, and there's a whole bunch of them saved in here already. Lastly, from the TB3, the MIDI is going out to my sample machine, and I've got an SP404 sample machine. It's a little bit older, from about 2005. Now you can record samples onto all of these different banks and patches here, but then you can make patterns out of your samples. So you could basically make a drum beat with your voice, something that I've done here. But this is going to start and stop whenever the TB3 starts and stops. And going backwards again, the synth, starting the synth would start the TB3, which would start the SP404, and the master machine that starts all of them is the drum machine. But what I'm going to do, because maybe I don't want to hear the other instruments, I'm going to turn the volume down on the TB3 and the SP404 and the S1 synth. Now when I press this, all these machines are playing, but you're only hearing the TR8 right now, so I can add things in as I like. And I'm going to perform a song of mine soon, so you can see how all of these machines work together. I run all of these instruments into my mixing board, which is a Mackie Mix12FX. It's a really affordable and really compact mixing board, but it has all the features that I need on it. It's got a bunch of stereo channels. It's got gain control on the first 4 channels, so you can run mics in through it. It's got effects, which I'm actually not using, but there's a tape input and output, and then there's a control out and a headphones out. And this basically is all that I need in a compact little mixing board. It sits nicely on here. And going out from the master output of the mixing board, it runs into my loop station. And the loop station I'm using right now is the Boss RC505, specifically meant for the types of projects such as the one that I'm doing. It sits on a table, and it's all finger buttons instead of the more traditional foot switch stomp box style, which would sit on the floor and you would use with your feet. So I can take something like this right now you're hearing the drum machine and the TB3, and I'm going to record it onto the loop station. So now you're hearing it on the loop station instead of on the drum machine. So if I stop the loop station, it stops playing because I've just transferred the audio from the instruments over onto the loop station, and from here I can do things with that sample. There's lots of different effects I can add to it. Those are track effects, so these are the tracks. You can record onto them separately and have 5 different loop stations playing at the same time, and they're set up to play in synchronization, but you can take that synchronization off if you want to. Over here there's also input effects that would be adding effects to the instruments that are coming into the machine. So if I start the drum machine and the step sequencer again, now I'm adding a filter to the input, not to the output. Lastly, I've made this phone. I've just put an XLR chassis on the back of here, and I've wired the phone into the chassis so that when you plug a mic cable into it, I'm running my mic cable out to this TC Helicon Voicetone C1 it's called. Simply put, it's an auto-tune machine. It's an auto-tune stomp box, so you can have live auto-tuning. You can control the actual pitch or the key signature that you want to stay within, or you can run it over to the end here. It says CH really small there, which is chromatic. That's just going to adjust your vocals to the closest note and ignore the key signature. But I've got it set to the key of C right now, and this song is set to the key of C. If I start this right now, I can actually change the key signature on the TB3 if I hold it down. So now it's in the key of G here, but I want to put it back to C. So I'm going to introduce the synth here. So now you've got the S1 is set up on an arpeggiator and the keyhole is down, so I can just let it play out on its own. I'll bring in my sample machine pattern. You can just hear my voice a little bit on the pattern there. So I think I'll play a song right now. This is called Pynchonesque. This is from my album Mixed Media. You can find it on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to music.
Now it's sent to you. Was a dream catcher. Modern day cynic, bar school lecturer.
It's called Pynchonesque. It's on my album Mixed Media. Check out conductorelectronic.com for more on my rig rundown and lots more. Have a good day.